Welcome to the latest of my deep dive videos. Today I'm going to explore the journey of the Sun at the heart of our existence through the 12th and final sign of Pisces, which is a water sign which is co-ruled by Jupiter and Neptune. But as the Sun arrives this year, there is a very powerful set of influences in residence, not least the North Node. The North Node is in Pisces as the Sun arrives for the first time in 17 years. So that's hugely symbolic in terms of cycles, but it's also applying to Neptune in a conjunction. Now, if there weren't other things going on, that single influence gives us an opportunity to heighten the frequency of our understanding of the non-practical side of life in an extraordinarily potent way. But there is other stuff going on too, because the traditional ruler of the sign of Pisces, Jupiter, is currently in the chatty sign of Gemini where it's detrimented, but it clashes as the Sun arrives with Mercury, which is equally detrimented in Pisces. So we have a mutual receptivity, but they're not on good terms at all. And also the steely, cold energies of Saturn lays in wait. Now, Saturn's been in Pisces for just short of 2 years. Doesn't like being in Pisces. Saturn likes things that are practical and very systematic and has clear boundaries. And of course, the sign of Pisces is an infinite energy. It doesn't like those boundaries at all. It resists that. So we've got also some tension from that. I'm going to share with you the event chart of when the Sun arrives. I'm going to do it from a solar perspective to begin with. That just gives us an overall view that we can all collectively relate to. I'm then going to quickly share with you the event chart from a universal time and the prime meridian, because the ascendant is 0 degrees Gemini, squaring with the Sun at 0 degrees Pisces. Both mutable signs which flex, but that square is again a big challenge to what we're going to experience, because the event chart provides the backdrop for the next 4 weeks. So however much we generalize the Sun in Pisces, we have to look at these other characteristics to really get a deeper understanding of how things are going to play out. I'm then going to share with you the upcoming aspects over the next 4 weeks. Some of them are very good, some of them much more challenging. Then I'll go through each of the 12 signs from Aries through to Pisces to give you a flavour of what you can expect for your sign over this next month. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundell. If you're new to my channel, welcome. If you're a returning visitor, all your views and interactions are truly appreciated. If you've any thoughts, please share them. This is very much a community. If you've yet to sub, please do so now. Help the channel to thrive by clicking or tapping that subscription button, but also the bell notification symbol. I've just launched a new website. It is a work in progress, but if you'd like to visit it, please go to www.patrickarundell.com. Through to the end of February, you can grab yourself a half price horoscope package of your 12-month forecast, but also your life roadmap report. Totally unique to you. Please see the link below for more. Also, if you'd like to take advantage of my new video reading service, you can have your year ahead, you can have 2 questions answered, or if you've an upcoming birthday, your solar return. Or if you'd like to speak with me directly, you can have a one-to-one. I am a consulting astrologer. Please see the link below. You can also check out all my testimonials from my clients. So the Sun moves into Pisces on February the 18th through to March the 20th. And to begin with, through the first 10 days, it's in Decan 1, sub-ruled by Neptune, through to the 27th of February. But then on to the 9th of March, we have Decan 2, sub-ruled by the Moon. And then on to the 20th of March, Decan 3, sub-ruled by the aforementioned Jupiter. But what about the themes of the sign of Pisces? I think most people have a sense of Pisces people being maybe a little bit mysterious in some ways. Certainly people who can be very caring and compassionate, often be absolutely fantastic psychics, but also work a lot in health, potentially mental health, or in care situations where a lot of energy has to be summoned up to help people when they're at their most vulnerable, sometimes end of life care. Pisces people, when they give big. But one of the paradoxes that I feel that doesn't get addressed in astrology about the sun in Pisces is that I like to feel, particularly in relation to the glyphs of the two fish going in two different directions, the duality of this sign is quite complex. A Pisces person can be very devoted and invested, but when they're not, they can actually be very unavailable and can disassociate and detach and be very, very cold. And if we think about fish, they are cold. They live in cold, the water. So we have the watery element of this sign, which can be very empathetic and compassionate. But I like to think of the angler on the side of the river trying to get their prey, and the trout is in the bottom of the stream with one eye looking at the fisher person, knowing very well what the plan is, and they're not going to oblige. So don't underestimate Pisces people. Yes, they can be very, very giving. Pisces people can be some of the most lovely people you can encounter, but also they can flip out and go the opposite way too. Or some Pisces people don't seem to possess that more caring instinct. It's much more about using the more ephemeral drifting energy of the sign to be much more tactical and shrewd in the way they approach things. So it's not necessarily quite as, I feel, as simple as some of the archetypes are painted. But generally speaking, there is a sensitivity because of the water and instinctiveness, particularly around the environment. May often love to be near water or go on holiday to places which have a very watery dimension to them. But that empathy can be very, very strong, and their genuine concern for people can be extremely lovely, particularly for people who may be going through a part of their life, if they're ill or receiving treatment or incarcerated in some way, because Pisces people often work in big institutions doing extremely important jobs, but not necessarily ones that where they demand attention, so they can work behind the scenes. So that can be hospitals, prisons, governmental departments, but very much things like care homes. And some of the best psychics you will meet will often have a very strong 12th house or Piscean energy to their nature. But the more dreamy, elusive and escapist side of Pisces people can see them prone to addiction, and also it can give them wonderful powers of artistry, creativity, whether it is through painting, crafting, music, art installations, whichever way it may be, photography, film, visualization, acting, all of these things, very, very Piscean, because they can tune in to the flow of situations very well. But as I say, they can have a dislike of being contained in any way, and that's why Saturn has probably been quite challenging for a lot of Pisces people over the last couple of years. Now, if you are a Pisces person and you are someone who does like a degree of quiet and tranquility and reflection and seclusion, it wouldn't be a complete surprise. But remember, it's whatever house your sun is in. So if you've got the sun in house 5, you're going to project out the sensitivity in a much more warmer and outgoing and interactive way. If you have the sun in house 3, you could be a very skilled communicator, getting the balance between the link to others but also tuning into your empathy. So very, very important to understand whatever house the sun is located in, but whatever relationship the sun is also forging to any other players in your natal chart. So of course, sometimes the sun can be blessed, sometimes it can be afflicted. But also it's important to understand that the 12th solar house, generally speaking, can in traditional astrology be known as the sector of secret enemies. But I feel it can be all about secrets or people's agendas which are not obvious. So it can be a time when some cunning behavior may play out, and particularly because of that square between Mercury and Jupiter. So on the screen now I'm showing the event chart perspective just to give you a flavour of what we can expect. So there's the Sun at 0 degrees and in the sign of Pisces. It is forging a really quite delightful link to the Moon. The problem is the Moon's squaring up to Pluto, so one of astrology's wonderful paradoxes. What does that tell us? Well, however attuned we may be to situations, just watch out for the power plays. There may be someone who in quite a calculating, rather detached way, because of Pluto being so close to the part of fortune in Aquarius, they may be quite tactical in what they want to achieve with their ideology, which may be very counter to the needs of human interaction and support, which is very Piscean and Scorpio. But there's Mercury in the 12th house, and Mercury doesn't like being in Pisces at all. It erodes its clarity, it erodes its ability to think logically, and it's in that square. You can see 7:13 against Jupiter itself in detriment at 11:36. So it's a pretty close right angle. So what I would say you need to look out for, we all need to look out for, is whatever we're being told, there will be a motive that's not obvious. I've been saying this for a very long time because of the journey of Neptune to begin with, but more recently with Saturn, as they have come into contact with the players in Gemini. And of course, since last July, Jupiter and Saturn broadly within 3 degrees have been in a dust up. So ever since then, there has been a grab going on for hearts and minds. And unfortunately, some of the things that were claimed or promoted will not stack up in the way that those claims and promotions were based upon. So be aware that distortion, which is a very Piscean possibility, particularly with Mercury, or exaggeration, or gossip, or worse, slander, could be part of the journey we're going to go through over the next month. But you can also see there is some more positive stuff. You know, Venus and Jupiter are the 2 planets of fortune, and although Venus itself is in its detriment in Aries, that's a very strong link with Jupiter, suggesting it's important to stay in touch with our identity, because one of the things that Pisces energy can do is in some ways dissolve and erode, just like the sea can on the shore. When it keeps battering the shore, it erodes the soil, and that can be a Pisces dimension. So watch out for that. But I think that does give us some potential elevation. But that combination between the North Node and Neptune is really lovely. And if you are someone who really does want to do something over the next month, which is much more to do with rest, recuperation, restoring some energy into your system by having some downtime, that's definitely something you could consider if it's available to you. But what about the event chart from a natal perspective? Well, as I mentioned before, the ascendant, incredibly, is at 0 degrees, 0 minutes. How rare is that? So as the Sun moves an exact square. So what we get between the ascendant as a square and the Sun, it means the Sun is actually on the 10th house cusp from an equal house perspective. But from Placidus, you can see the Sun, Mercury, Saturn, the North Node and Neptune are all in house 11. And why I felt that that was very symbolic is house 11 is very Aquarian. It's the connection between all of us. It is community. And yet the sign of Gemini, which is about quick, fast communication, sees Jupiter in resonance, which can be very much to do with dogma, but it can also be to do with the desire to propagate ideals and philosophies but there will be an agenda behind them. So just be mindful of that square between the ascendant and the sun, but also that collective in the 11th house. So as the sun moves forwards, our future, particularly in terms of maintaining our individual rights, but also maintaining a respect and a caringness for one another, is what is going to be potentially challenged. Now, what about the upcoming aspects? Well, in terms of the more challenging ones, the first one that came up for me is exactly on March the 2nd. So as we go into the new month, the sun is squaring up to Jupiter. Now that can, in a natal chart, I have that, see people be quite optimistic and sometimes very generous, but it can also make people perhaps so optimistic that they're not very realistic. So just be aware of that at the start of March. But then the sun applies to Saturn, and that is going to occur exactly on March the 12th. And that could see a lowering in our spirits, a lowering in our vitality, but also a lowering in our immune systems, because I feel that we're going to pick up in a sensory way any energy that's going on. So the energetic exchange is not likely to be very good for us. So because the sun can be about our body and Saturn can be about limitation, that could be a time of challenge for sure. Now the sun forges a conjunction with the North Node on the 17th. That could be very inspirational, and it's repeated with the sun combining with Neptune on March the 19th. Again, the potential to raise our vibration. But we have to have the conditions in order to be able to do that. And perhaps there could be some reality, particularly with Saturn in the mix, that does shatter our hopes in some ways. Now, in terms of the better aspects, there's a trine between the Sun and Mars on March the 8th, which could create some extra drive, particularly because Mars in Cancer will be in direct motion by then. And the Sun also forges a useful link to Uranus on March the 14th. So important to continue to look outside the box, to be innovative and open to how we can use past experiences and knowledge, which we can become much more conscious of with the Sun in Pisces in some kind of fresh way. It's also possible that we can find ourselves being much more nostalgic, yearning for the past, thinking about people we haven't seen or heard from for some while. For some people, there could even be a spiritual dimension to this, so going on a retreat, meeting people who have shared values could be very uplifting. But then again, it could be getting together with people in our locality, perhaps through a swimming club or a mindfulness group, or connecting with a life coach or a counsellor who can help to expand our awareness of our inner workings, because Pisces gives us a great opportunity to do that as long as we don't want to avoid a reality. So sometimes the weakness of Pisces can be that avoidance, whether it is through drugs or alcohol or overeating or over-exercising, whatever it is that we do a lot, overwork in my case, whatever we do a lot to avoid something, that's going to come under the astral microscope over the next few weeks. Please stay with me as I go through each of the 12 zodiac signs, but please do check out my new website at www.patrickarundell.com, and do grab yourself a bargain with that half price horoscope offer through to the end of February by seeing the link beneath this video. Aries, for you, what I feel will occur over the next month is some realities are going to come home to roost. Now, in a very constructive and positive way, it may be that past effort that you've invested over an extremely long time will start to come more into the open. You've got a fantastic solar eclipse to look forwards to, and of course Neptune and Saturn are going to be arriving in your sign too. So the chance to get back on the front foot with the things that are important to you as an individual is there. But one of the things I would say you need to guard against, if there is something awkward that you have been avoiding, whether it has been a painful separation or someone's behaviour that hasn't been reaching the required standard, I really would embrace this next month. I wouldn't try to avoid any difficulty because it's still going to be there. What you may find also is because there is that potential for a bright new beginning, and that has been showing up for some while, particularly with Jupiter in Gemini, there may be something that you have begun and it has great potential, but you may need to still toggle with something that's winding down in your situation. You're really going to feel the uplift from the start of 2026 when Saturn and Neptune move fully into your sign. But there is going to be moments of possibility this year for sure, but I wouldn't avoid something that's calling out to you. It may be that there's some fears or anxieties that you are a little concerned to look at. It may be that someone around you is not quite as sincere and honest and faithful as you would like. Not necessarily in a romantic context. It could be a colleague, it could be a friend, it may even be a family member, because the 12th house can be very secretive. So watch out for people, and I wouldn't be sharing confidential information to anyone you're not entirely sure of in terms of how loyal they are to you. So anything that is very important to you, I would keep it very tight to your chest unless you're absolutely sure on who you can share it with. Please check out your half-price horoscope offer, which you can order at www.patrickarundell.com through to the end of February. So, Taurus, how's your friendship situation been over the last couple of years? I think the chances are you've got to know in a much more intimate way who you could really rely upon. But it may be a bit more nuanced than that. Perhaps you've had other things to focus on. That part of you that's really been quite caught up in change, whether it's because Uranus in your sign or Pluto in house 9 through a desire to break out and do different things. So there may be quite a lot of experimentation and alteration that's been threaded through your situation that may have made it more difficult to spend time with people that you do enjoy being with. So if there has been a little bit of a lag in the connections you've had, or there's been a lack of time, I feel that this next month does give you a really great opportunity to reach out to people, have a convivial time. It is true with the Sun's combination to Saturn that if there is a weak link still, whether it's around an association, a group network that isn't working quite so well for you, it could still be tested. But I feel there's plenty of opportunities, and of course as this process begins, your ruler Venus is forging a very strong link with Jupiter. So maybe in terms of your finances, it could be someone you know, but it may be someone you know from your past that you could connect to, perhaps quietly, confidentially, and some kind of collaboration that you're working on could have some financial benefits to it that are going to be realized over the following month. But the other thing to think about is the 11th house, which Pisces is for you, is about your future. And if there is uncertainty about what you really want, what you're being asked to do now is to define it in as realistic a way as possible. Please check out your half-price horoscope offer, which you can order at www.patrickarundell.com through to the end of February. So Gemini, it really does depend on where you have the Sun or the ascendant in the sign of Gemini. For example, if you have the Sun towards the end of Gemini, the energy of the North Node and Neptune could be having a profound effect in terms of your goals and ambitions and creating a degree of uncertainty or even confusion. If your energy is more at the start of Gemini, as the Sun moves into the sign of Pisces, that too is asking you to think a lot about the things that are really important to you in terms of raising your profile, receiving greater recognition. Sometimes our connection to the world at large, which comes through the 10th house, or in your case Pisces, is different from person to person. It's not for every person that they want the same things, they don't aspire to the same things. So whatever it is you really find motivates you and you'd like to reach something around and improve your situation, that's what's going to show up over the next month. But of course, because Saturn's in the mix, it could be where there is going to be a test. And that test is potentially going to be very strong around March the 12th. So whether it's a line manager you find who's difficult to deal with, maybe you're the one with a lot of responsibility and your company or employer puts even more on you, whether you work for yourself and you find it difficult to reach clients, Saturn will certainly concentrate your mind on what's truly viable and what is not. But as this next month goes on, the more idealistic part of your ambitions can come to the fore, but that's where it will be important to get that balance between your objectives and what is truly deliverable on. So if you are being a bit too dreamy, that could show up. And also because Jupiter in your sign is in that square with your ruler at the start of this process, if you are promising to do something or you're engaging with people to do something, you need to be able to be sure that it is something you can deliver on. Please check out your half-price horoscope offer, which you can order at www.patrickarundell.com through to the end of February. So Cancer, having such a set of energy in your sister water sign is a wonderful chance to reignite the things that excite you, whether it's travel, interests, doing things that are a bit more independent, give you a chance to be more spontaneous. Saturn has really been creating some barriers to that over the last couple of years. I don't necessarily think it's been easy for you. You may have felt that your options were rather limited. I don't think that they're necessarily going to become perfect with this particular transit this year, but I certainly feel as it starts, your desire to reset and to find a way forwards which really gives you the space and the opportunities to be much more daring and much more on the front foot. That's what's really going to get you stimulated, whether it is a new interest, a course of education, whether it's learning an interest, whether it is about moving somewhere that creates more space, whether it is about going on a vacation which gives you an opportunity to experience a completely different culture. Those kind of strands will really be calling out to you over the next 4 weeks. But equally, if you are involved in any kind of litigation, contractual matters, all of that can come to the boil around March the 12th. And if something is proven to be very much a struggle that you're having to do, and you do feel really penned in by it, I feel it really could reach a point of no return around that time. Please check out your half-price horoscope offer, which you can order at www.patrickarundell.com through to the end of February. For your sign, which is very focused on demonstrating your individual qualities, talents and charisma, that you have to collaborate in some way. And if there is a situation, for example, a business, where you do feel very much part of it and you can showcase your individual qualities, but also feel that the connection to whatever it is that you're involved with is meaningful, then it could take on much greater shape over the next month. But if you're in a loveless relationship, to be honest, or you work for someone where you may get paid but there's nothing in it for you, it has no real depth of meaning, or if there's something that needs to transform in your deep psyche that you've been resisting, this is a month when you really do need to look at it seriously, particularly when the Sun does apply to Saturn, because that could be a point when something seals in a constructive way or where it may break down. It just depends on your circumstances. But if you're someone who feels that you've got an idea that you're really excited to manifest, and perhaps it is a more entrepreneurial strand, and it means blending your talent and your idea with the more business-like side of that situation, it may be that you do need to get some extra finance, it may be an investor, it could be that you need some business advice or some life coaching, or you need to get a website built and all these kind of things. And there could therefore be a lot of research and planning and thinking before something really transforms in the way that you truly want. Please check out your half-price horoscope offer, which you can order at www.patrickarundell.com through to the end of February. So Virgo, the last couple of years for you, particularly with Saturn in your 7th house, I feel has asked some questions. Now Mercury, your ruler, is back in house 7, and for you Mercury in Pisces works better than pretty well for anyone else. But of course it is in that square with Jupiter. So for you, the challenge is around your work. So for example, if someone asks you, can you do something, you need to be sure that you are answering them in a truly accurate way, otherwise it could affect your credibility. But in some situations, particularly if you're born towards the end of Virgo, it may seem a bit elusive around a relationship. Someone may not be quite connecting with you in the way you truly want. If you're born more towards the start of Virgo, maybe that won't show up straight away, but I feel it is important, particularly when the Sun applies to Saturn, that you're aware of what you will give, what you will expect, and what the lines of engagement really will be. So being aware of boundaries when the Sun is in the sign of Pisces is no easy feat, but that's really what this is all about, particularly around relationships. But there could be an opportunity if you're single, but it needs to be with someone where the communication flows and really connects and is reassuring pretty well from the off. Please check out your half-price horoscope offer, which you can order at www.patrickarundell.com through to the end of February. So Libra, over the last few years, your tremendous commitment, sacrifice, empathy have probably shown out, particularly with Saturn having joined Neptune in the sign of Pisces. But if you've been doing a service or care-based role for a long time and really showing that much give, it's important that you give to yourself. So the next month is a serious opportunity to think about your welfare, your life structure, what you're eating, drinking, cooking, the exercise that you're getting, the sleep that you're getting. It's a time to seriously analyze these things, because the sign of Pisces is complex, can be very opaque. We can make excuses not to do things. Particularly, well, I don't really want to say that because it could upset. We can make those kind of excuses because once the Sun meets with Saturn on the 12th of March, something could reach a point where you have to really look at it seriously. There may be something that could reach a point of breakthrough or breakdown, and the important thing is, as much as it's very laudable to do things for others or work really hard or even exercise really hard, we have to make sure that it's all proportionate. So that's really what you're being asked to do. Now, in a very positive way, if you are looking to get a new job or to restructure your personal routines, this can be a time when you can really go for it with imagination. For example, if you use music when you're exercising, that's a great way of doing something that gives you some personal uplift and escapism, but has a virtuous dimension to it too. So those are the things that I see coming up for you, Libra. Please check out your half-price horoscope offer, which you can order at www.patrickarundell.com through to the end of February. So Scorpio, the sign of Pisces, shares your water triplicity, but it's also your 5th house. The 5th house can be about joyfulness, but Saturn's been in occupation for the last couple of years, and that may have been challenging if you have children. Their needs may have been quite to the fore. It may be that a romantic relationship has proved elusive, or one you're in has some kind of catch. It may also be that you'd like to meet someone or reinvigorate your social life, which for many people has been affected in the COVID and post-COVID time. Maybe that's not been an area that's been easy also to be in because of the constraints that Saturn has created. So the big opportunity for you is to take play more seriously over the next 4 weeks. And if you do, I feel there is a chance for you to have some lovely fun. What are the challenges? Well, because of the 8th house energy of Jupiter and the ascendant in that natal chart, if there is somebody who's inhibiting your situation to enjoy yourself because of jealousy or control, or maybe your own fears around those things are stopping you from going out and having fun, maybe that's something you really need to consider. But I want you to know that when the Sun reaches to the position of Saturn on the 12th of March, it could bake in a very positive situation. So you could meet someone who is as open to working at enjoying themselves as you, but it could be the opposite end of the spectrum, because that is how astrology works. It's never one-sided. Saturn can be a challenge, but it can reward hard work. And when it comes to your talents and creativity, that could be an area that really blossoms over the next month. So you could find yourself joining a hobby group, some crofters or crafters, and that could be something that really brings some sparkle to you. Or it may be joining a club that dances each week or does salsa. These things that can bring joy to your life is what you should take seriously over the next 4 weeks. Please check out your half-price horoscope offer, which you can order at www.patrickarundell.com through to the end of February. Sagittarius, Saturn has been asking some big questions over the last couple of years when it comes to where you live, who you live with, and how. Now, in a purely practical way, Saturn can be about structures. So it may be something's changed about where you're living. Now, if you've had an expanding family, you may have needed more space. If kids have flown the nest, you may have wanted to downsize. But that's the more practical side of it. The sign of Pisces is the more sensory side of it as well. And you could find yourself thinking about where you live, nothing to do with the practical element, because you instinctively want to live in a place. Now, it may have some practical considerations to take into account, but maybe things like light, decor, the outlook, the nearness or the distance to a road, to amenities, to parks, and those kind of things. There could be quite the equation that you're computating over the next 4 weeks. And when the Sun reaches Saturn, some kind of key decision may be made. But equally, because this process begins with your ruler Jupiter in the mix, squaring up with Mercury, you could find yourself talking to someone more about how you feel. And there could be an opportunity to talk about those feelings in a way which gives you more insight. And because you're someone who has a great appreciation of knowledge, bringing that knowledge in around our inner world, so Saturn in terms of where we live, the practical structure, but it's our emotions within us. That's also for you influenced by the sign of Pisces. And of course the sign of Pisces can be a bit of an avoider, and that might ring out to you because your sign always wants to be involved in the next exciting, enterprising new project or adventure. But if you're doing something in order to move away from something that is painful or unresolved or not fully worked out, this is your chance to grapple with it, and in a big way. Please check out your half-price horoscope offer, which you can order at www.patrickarundell.com through to the end of February. Capricorn, let's talk, because Saturn, your ruler, has probably made you, or some people you've encountered, a bit resistant to talking over the last couple of years. That could have created some cooler conditions with neighbours, with siblings. Maybe you've become profoundly invested in some of your belief systems, the third house, and that could have seen you clashing with people who are just as invested in their viewpoint that's different to yours, because you've been taking those ideas more seriously. There's nothing wrong with that, but it just changes the dimension of your interaction. So, over the next month, a glorious opportunity to talk. But of course, the planet of talk, Mercury, is compromised by the planet of claims, which is Jupiter. So it's important, if you're applying for a job, for example, putting together your CV, that it accurately reflects your situation. You might get the gig in the first place, but then if your credentials are checked out future forwards and found to be not right, that could have consequences. But also, your interactions with other people come a lot through the internet, and if that isn't working for you quite in the way that it used to, that could see a shift. Then again, you could start using the internet in a different way. If you're someone with a message to tell, this is a fantastic window of opportunity. And I feel that once the sun does align with your ruler on March the 12th, your belief and your conviction about your ideas can actually come across in a way that people will know that what you say is exactly what you mean. And that can give you greater gravitas and gain people's respect. But if your situation has felt a bit stuck in terms of your interaction physically with others, the third house gives us encouragement to get out and about, even if it's short journeys. It may be that for some Capricorns, reviewing your mode of transport or your technology can be very much to the fore over the next month. If you haven't spent so much time socialising or getting to know people immediately around you, the chance to connect through communities could definitely be heightened over the next 4 weeks too. Please check out your half-price horoscope offer, which you can order at www.patrickarundell.com through to the end of February. So Aquarius, the last couple of years for many Aquarius people has seen the transition from Pluto being in house 12, and of course Saturn was in Aquarius, moved into Pisces just under 2 years ago. So that journey through the sign of Aquarius wasn't easy. Then whilst it's been in house 2, it's been a lot to do with getting to grips with what are the foundations of your world, what represents what you build up from. If those foundations have been really solid, you may be in the process of really building brick by brick something that's going to be truly substantive. But I think there may have been some headwinds around everyday costs, which have gone up for virtually everyone, and they may have impacted on you perhaps more than most because Saturn in house 2, everyday finance. You may have been checking out your sense of your own value, where you can add something to others. So all of those have been part of the equation of Saturn in the sign of Pisces. But I feel the next month can see things come back to you, particularly if you've put all of yourself into a very creative situation. And especially over the last month, if you've really been very, very motivated, demonstrating to people the talents, the individuality, the foresight, the understanding of where things are heading, which is often very much an Aquarius talent, now you can start to see the benefits come through to you, which could prove to be very satisfying. But it's possible for some Aquarius people, if you kept going with something that was working quite well, but it wasn't really quite as much of you in terms of your individual input, you could find with the Sun and Saturn applying on March the 12th that you may reach a point where you do have to make some kind of big switch in order to shift your situation into something that does really speak to you, that gives you that sense of excitement. So I feel there's loads of opportunities over the next month. If you are someone who set yourself some kind of challenge around diet or drinking for the early parts of this year through some New Year's resolutions, they could be tested a little bit because the sign of Pisces does like a little bit of escapism, whether it is through, really yummy foods, whatever your particular thing is, but just be conscious of that. But generally speaking, you're going to find out if all the hard work is going to render you a reward, or there's a bit of an adjustment that you need to make. And I think it could be a bit of both for many of us, but for some people, it could feel that something's really firming up in a very exciting way. Please check out your half-price horoscope offer, which you can order at www.patrickarundell.com through to the end of February. So Pisces, having Saturn in our own sign can be challenging, no doubt about it, particularly if you've got the moon in Pisces. But what I would say is that what Saturn in our own sign helps us to do is become much more conscious of what's really needed. So it encourages us to make ourselves mean and lean, strip things down which are non-essential. So over the last couple of years, particularly if you've got planets in the first half of the sign of Pisces, you may have been liberating yourself from something. It may not necessarily have been easy. There may have been a job that was very important to you, a relationship, some interest. But if you've learnt that they have become more peripheral to who you really need to be, you may have been embracing a much simpler way of leading your life. Now what you can do with the sun arriving back in your sign is you get a boost of energy, of vitality, of enthusiasm, and that's all to the good. But there is going to be a challenge when the sun applies back to Saturn on March the 12th. But wherever you've got planets in the sign of Pisces, by the 26th of May, Saturn will have gone over all of them over the last 2.5 years by that time, or 2.25 years. Now, of course, Saturn will be in Aries for 3 months, but the question it's going to be asking there is more about self-worth, foundations, finance. So let's just wind back to this month. This month gives you the chance to feel much more invigorated. If you do want to start something, a great time to do it. If something has felt a little bit weary, a chance to ignite it in some ways. Maybe it's an ongoing plan that just needs more traction. But if you have felt a bit withdrawn, quiet, not really venturing out much since the turn of the year, I feel that you are going to feel much more in the mood to take a firmer grip on your life direction. And if you're a talented Pisces, and it's a rare a Pisces that isn't, those talents can really glow up over the next 4 weeks in a really exciting way. But the link to Saturn still asks that central question. Whatever you're putting a lot into needs to be essential for you to make progress. Thank you so much for watching this Pisces Season Deep Dive Special. If you've yet to watch your February Deep Dive forecast for each of the 12 zodiac signs, please see the link beneath this video.